What's going on YouTube? It's Tom here and we're back with another video today. Today's going to be kind of an interesting video. I was tagged in a post by Triple B on Instagram and he wanted everyone to kind of share their opinions on these four steels that we're going to be talking about today. The four steels that we're going to be talking about are K390, Maximun, Rex 45, and Crewwear. These are top tier steels that are only used by Spyderco in a production capacity. So basically, he wanted opinions on what the best Spyderco production steel was. And that being said, he wants an opinionated video, and that's what we're about ready to do. I mean, obviously, it's just my experiences and everything, so it's going to be my opinions on them. But labeling the best Spyderco steel is very subjective, and it really depends on your uses. This is all, like I said, just going to be based on my experience and my use. We'll be talking about these steels in a production capacity as well, and we're not including custom heat treats or any custom geometry like Triple B does or some of the other guys out there. So the first steel that we're going to talk about is K390, and I don't have any of it on the table because I've never actually had any experience with K390. I was going to pick up one of the Para 3s when they came out, and the only reason I haven't is because that they were testing around 62 to 63, and that was a little bit disappointing to me. I wanted something that was going to be a little bit harder. I know the police run was right around like 65, 66 if I'm remembering correctly, but the police is a little bit big. I still might pick up a police at some point just to test K390, but I haven't been able to pull the trigger yet. I mean, $200 for a knife that I know I'm not really going to like as far as carrying it and the overall size and everything is a lot of money. There is rumors of an Endura family sprint of that coming here in 2020. It was supposed to be early 2020 from the way I understood it, and with SHOT being right around the corner, that might still be happening. I know that they're probably going to do their product reveal sometime around SHOT, or probably at SHOT, honestly. So if that's the case, that's probably the route that I'm going to go, just because it's going to be a lower cost alternative to the Para 3 or the police, and it's probably going to be run harder, seeing that the police was from the Seki factory, I believe, and that it was run quite a bit harder. The knives I have here on the table, by the way, represent some of these steels. I don't have Crewwear on the table. It's actually in my Wicked Edge right now, mounted up. It's having a little bit of reprofiling done. I actually just got these in like literally 5 minutes ago. My Patreon supporters paid for this for me, so thank you guys. I wear through those 200 and 600 grit stones like crazy. But anyhow, from what I hear on K390, it has great edge holding, great edge stability, and it sharpens very, very easily for a 10V class steel. And all that sounds like a winner to me. There's a pretty darn good possibility that could be my favorite of all four of these once I have some experience with it. But I'm just not going to test it. I don't want to test it unless it's close to its max potential like it was in the Police 4. I know it can get a little bit harder, but in a production steel, I think the Police 4 is about as close as you're going to get to its maximum potential. That's the only reason I haven't tried it, and that's really all I can say about K390 at this point. Next up is going to be Maximun. As you guys know, I have a decent amount of experience with Maximun. Let's see if we can get my camera to focus here. All right. I have a decent amount of experience with Maximun. I did a whole long-term project on it, and this is one of my favorite knives in my collection for sure. So let's talk about it a little bit. So this is the steel I have the most experience with out of all four of these. And I really think Spyderco's pushing the limits with its hardness for a production steel, or in a production capacity. I know you can get this thing well up over 70, 71 maybe if you're really lucky. Sean will have to correct me on that. But this one I have right here is 69.2. And then I have another one that's being reground by Brian at Transparent Knives, and that one tested at 68.9. So it seems like they have their heat treat down, and they're doing a very, very good job with this and being run close to its maximum potential. What you're going to get with Maximun is extreme edge holding. That's really what it's known for. It's So that super high hardness as well as its composition really lends itself to high edge holding. This one did 729 feet, and that blows everything else away that I've ever tested. For what I do, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. I want high edge holding on cardboard. You're really not going to get better edge holding in a production knife. This is pretty much the cream of the crop as far as edge holding. As far as the way it maintains its edge, it's kind of unique. It does like this weird, it goes from being sharp, this is freshly sharpened, to dull, like it almost feels dull, and then it becomes sharp again as more fresh carbide is exposed at the edge. It's kind of a unique thing. So you'll think that the knife is done, getting close to the end of its life, and you're about ready to sharpen it again, and then all of a sudden it gets catches another wind and just takes off again, and you're good for another 150 feet or so until it starts to feel dull again. It's really, really unique in that regard. It also has phenomenal edge stability, and that is pretty much just due to the hardness, I believe. Something at 69 HRC really isn't going to be easy to get an edge to roll on. I've actually never had the edge roll on Maximun. The only thing I've ever had happen is I've had it chip twice on me, and that's just because of the fact that I pushed it pretty much to its limits. You got to be kind of careful with Maximun, being that it is 69 HRC. It has high carbide volume. It's not a tough steel, and it will chip if you don't treat it correctly. So, sharpening it is actually pretty easy, but it definitely feels unique. It almost feels like the stones are just kind of skating over the edge, and you're not really doing anything. But as long as you have diamond stones or CBN, you will be abrading the steel. You don't really have to worry about that too much. And because it's so hard, it has very, very minimal burr formation, which is really, really nice. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort to deburr the edge, and it takes a phenomenal edge for being such a high carbide steel. So very, very good steel. Probably my favorite of the four, and definitely the one I have the most experience with, and the only one I have 2 knives of in that steel. So next, let's talk about Rex 45. I don't have any Rex 45 personally, but this knife is going to kind of take its place here on the table, and I'll tell you about that here in just a few minutes. I had a military into test. I don't remember the hardness of it. I think it was 66, but I'm not totally sure. I'd have to really go back and look. I forgot to put it in my chart, but I'd have to go back and watch Kurt's video when he tested it to get the hardness for it. It's really similar in composition to M4, which is why we have the Super Freak here on the table, but it's harder. So this M4 is like 63, 64. I think the Rex 45 was like, you could get up to like 66, 67, I believe, maybe a little bit more with a custom heat treat protocol. Overall, my impressions of it, it had very, very good edge retention. I'd say a little bit higher than M4 level. It did 434 feet. M4 does, low 300s to high 300s pretty much. Not a huge difference there. And it had pretty darn good edge stability. That's another, that's a characteristic of a hard steel. It's just going to have good edge stability pretty much. Sharpened very, very nice. It takes a great edge, really similar to M4. And if you told me that military was M4 and it wasn't labeled as Rex 45, I would have believed you. It performed so similar to M4. Sharpened the same, held an edge just about the same, was just about as stable. They're basically, in a production capacity, the same steel. There really isn't a huge difference. Hardness is what makes Rex 45 a different animal as far as the way it performs, and you really need better geometry to take advantage of that. Spyderco doesn't, unfortunately, so I'm just going to stick with M4 and not pay the inflated secondary market prices for Rex 45. Last but not least, we have Crewwear. Crewwear is a much different steel than all three, and like I said, I don't have Crewwear on the table right now because it's clamped up in my Wicked Edge, waiting to have a little bit of reprofiling done with those brand new stones. But I have done a decent amount of testing on Crewwear. It's a steel that before I got that Mannix in the Smooth G10, I really didn't have a ton of experience with. I had a little bit, but not a lot. I did a decent amount of testing for about 2 months or so with Crewwear. and it's a much different steel than the other three. It's a tougher steel with lower carbide volume, and it performs a little bit different in that regard. The hardness has kind of varied over the years through different runs. It's anywhere from like 60 to 64. The old runs were a little bit harder, around 63, 64, and this newer run has been a little bit softer, between like 60 and 62, it seems. The one I have was 61.2, so it's a little bit on the lower end, so it's going to be a little bit tougher than what they were at 63, 64, and not going to have quite as much edge holding. It had very, very good edge retention for a tough steel. It did 363 feet. Very, very respectable. I mean, that's M4 range, but a tougher steel. It kind of lacks in edge stability, unlike the others, just because it is a tough steel and it's softer. When you get a tough steel like that, that's obviously going to be run softer, you're just going to lack in edge stability. That's just the way that it goes. Out of all four, it pretty much sharpens the best. It takes a stupid sharp edge. If you're someone who likes to sharpen, you're going to love sharpening crew wear. It sharpens easily and takes a super fine edge, and it's kind of unique because it holds that super fine edge for an absurd amount of time. So normally with a steel like Maximun or M4, right around that 100-foot mark, it seems you start to lose some of that initial sharpness, and you kind of break down into a working edge. The crew wear maintained that crazy sharp initial sharpness all the way up through past 200 feet or so. So that was a very unique experience for me, and that's kind of what sets that steel apart for me. It's crazy tough when you consider the edge retention. I really didn't baby crew wear at all when I was testing it. And I mean, I banged it into metal pipes on accident, took a couple nice chunks out of the edge, and it really, really held up nice. Stuff that if I would have done with Maximun, I'm not sure I'd have a blade left. So crew wear is very, very fantastic as far as if you're looking for a steel that's balanced, because this is definitely the most balanced steel out of all four. If you're looking for something that has high toughness with pretty darn good edge retention, crew wear is definitely the steel for you. That's why it's one of my favorites. So now that we've talked about all four, we're going to kind of get to a conclusion here. All four of these steels are elite. I mean, they're pretty much cream of the crop as far as knife steels go. We're really, really lucky that Spyderco chooses to work with these top tier steels. A lot of companies won't touch these steels with a 10-foot pole just because of all the development that it takes. Spyderco, in general, did the Mule Team project and everything. That what they want to do is they want to make sure that they're getting the correct heat treat protocol for these steels for a production knife. They try and figure out the properties and everything, and then they try and pretty much figure out if it's feasible to produce a knife in that. And even if it's not really feasible, like Maximun was for them, as you guys saw with all the issues with production with the Para 3 and the PM2, they still work through it, and now they're becoming a little bit more common, which is great because it's awesome to see that Spyderco continues to work with steels like these just to get us steel junkies steels like this in our hands and able to test at a reasonable price. In my opinion, if I had to rank these 1 through 4, I would put Maximun at number 1. I mean, it's truly just a unicorn steel in a production knife right now. It's really the best you're going to get as far as edge holding goes, if that's what you value. I put crew wear at number 2 just because it's so well balanced. I mean, I've said that over and over on my channel in the past 6 months or so. It's just such a well balanced steel for what you're getting with the toughness and the edge retention. I put Rex 45 at 3 just because of how similar it is to M4 and how it was kind of disappointing at production geometries. And then I'm going to have to put K390 at 4 just because I have no experience with it, but it could definitely sneak up to number 2 when I get my hands on some. Maybe even number 1, but it would take a lot for that to happen. So with that being said, guys, that's my opinions on all 4 of those steels, and we're just very lucky that Spyderco produces knives in all 4 of those. You can't go wrong with any of them, and you should definitely try and get your hands on any of them if you get the chance to. I can't wait to see everyone else's opinions on these because Sean had a lot of people tagged, and I'm curious to see what everyone else's opinions are. So With that being said, guys, that's going to do it for me today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed to the channel. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.